Episode 16, The Wishing Bear. Christopher Robin shows Pooh his wishing star, I'm making hand air quotes, and tells him the secret rhyme that lets you make a wish on it. And in case you're wondering, it's flap like a bird, jump like a fish, sit down, stand up, wish, wish, wish. Pooh wishes for a pot of honey, naturally, and Christopher Robin has one prepared and gives it to Pooh while his eyes are closed. So, of course, Pooh starts making more wishes, but Christopher Robin doesn't have any more secret honey ready, so to cover up his fraud, he tells Pooh that the wishing star is small and can only grant so many wishes before getting worn out. Air quotes again. So Christopher Robin clearly knows that the wishing star doesn't really grant wishes, and he's telling Pooh about it just for fun, I guess, like a parent telling their kid about Santa Claus. It reminds me of the end of Nothing But the Tooth, when Christopher Robin, in a sort of knowing way, told Pooh to put the tooth under his pillow and maybe the tooth fairy would give him something for it. And lo and behold, the next morning, bam, pot of honey. I guess we can assume Christopher Robin put it there. So it seems like Christopher Robin's pretty advanced for a pre-kindergarten kid and knows things like the tooth fairy and wishing stars are fake. But I really don't know why he's supposed to be so smart. This is a kid who seems to believe his stuffed animals are alive. In Babysitter Blues, he legitimately thought the vacuum cleaner was a dragon. So it's a little weird that he doesn't believe in things like the Tooth Fairy and wishing stars, honestly. Anyway, the next day, Pooh tells Piglet, Tigger, and Rabbit about the wishing star, and they all want to make their own wishes. Piglet wants to be able to build a snowman, Tigger wants another Tigger to play with, and Rabbit wants all the bugs in his garden gone. So after some shenanigans where they try and help Pooh remember the wishing rhyme, they all go out and make their wishes. Pooh finally tries to wish for another pot of honey, but when a cloud passes over the star and he sees a falling star elsewhere in the sky, Pooh thinks he overwished and broke the star, and decides the only thing to do is make everyone's wishes come true himself. So what follows is kind of a Mrs. Doubtfire type story where Pooh rushes around taking turns pretending to be Piglet's snowman and the second Tigger, and luring bugs away from Rabbit's garden. But of course his ruse is eventually discovered and he tells them he broke the star. He and the others are all worried about what Christopher Robin will think, and again, just like in Balloonatics, Pooh fears that Christopher Robin will never speak to him again if he finds out. I don't know if that same fear cropping up twice is enough to make it like a recurring theme of the show, but I find it a little weird how easily Pooh finds himself expecting excommunication. Anyway, Pooh decides he's got to take the wishing star's place, so the toys do the only logical thing and dress Pooh up as a star and fire him into the sky with a makeshift catapult. I probably don't need to explain this is a little messed up because practically speaking it seems pretty likely to result in Pooh's death, but let's just leave that aside for the moment. It's messed up on another level because what they basically think they're doing is sending Pooh to the celestial realm to become the wishing star for good. Like, they're crying and stuff because they think Pooh's just going to live in the heavens from now on and they're, never going to see him again. I mean, yeah, they're upset about it, but they still do it. To them, it just makes sense, I guess, that just permanently removing Pooh from the earthly plane is justified in order to prevent Christopher Robin from feeling bad about something. I might be being too hard on them, though. It seems like this was Pooh's idea, so maybe they did protest, and Pooh just insisted this was the only way, and they decided to go through with it if it was really what Pooh wanted. I guess in Pooh's mind, the choice is stay on Earth but upset Christopher Robin and be excommunicated and never speak to him again, or be catapulted into the firmament and also never speak to Christopher Robin again, but at least Christopher Robin will still like him. Whew boy. If the episode had really dwelled on this dilemma, it could have been really grim. But of course, he just falls back to Earth and gets caught in a tree. The tree, in fact, the one he and Christopher Robin hang out under. So Christopher Robin shows up, Pooh pretends he's the wishing star, Christopher Robin, unaware of the ghastly Sophie's choice Pooh's just tried and failed to make, is highly amused, and wishes his best friend were there, which of course, he is. Happy ending. I like this one. It's not overly emotional or anything, but it's nice. Other than maybe Tigger's willingness to pull the trigger on the catapult, all the characters are nice to each other. The story centers around Pooh trying to do nice stuff for his friends. It's nice. I do wonder about Tigger wishing for another Tigger to play with, though. He's famously proud of being, quote, the only one. But is he lonely? Do the other animals just not fulfill some need for companionship he has that only another Tigger could? Sort of a big downer if true. But in any case, pretty good episode. Pleasant out of 10. Episode 17A, King of the Beasties. Christopher Robin's drawing animals and tells Pooh he's related to a bear. Okay. Owl says he's related to the noble eagle, and Piglet asks what he's related to, but no one cares enough to answer him. Tigger asks next, and Christopher Robin says he's related to the king of beasts, the lion, sort of. Air quotes, that's what Christopher Robin says, sort of. Tigger's excited by the thought of having royal blood and wants to be king of the 100-acre wood, but Owl says, and I find this extremely puzzling, that they don't need a king because they're not beasties, air quotes. Okay, so what are they then? The Heffalump, in that other Heffalump one, called them fuzzy woodland creatures. Are they not beasties because they're toys? I know in How Much Is That Rabbit in the Window, I begrudgingly had to accept that maybe Rabbit is in fact a stuffed toy and not a real biological animal. But, my heart wasn't in it. In my heart of hearts, I believe Owl, Gopher, and Rabbit are animals and not toys. This line, Owl says, only makes sense if they are all toys, though. Unless they're not beasties because they're all sentient. Maybe Christopher Robin's imagination elevated the formerly base and brutish Owl, Gopher, and Rabbit up to non-beastie status. I think that might be it because the animals in Christopher Robin's drawings, they all act like, animals, growling and roaring and all that. But so, okay, that aside, Owl thinks that beasties need a king, but sentient creatures don't? What does he think a king is exactly? Well, anyway, Tigger tries to argue that they do need a king to protect them from Jaguars. Now, they've mentioned Jaguars in a couple other episodes. I don't know if Jaguars were ever mentioned in the original stories or the theatrical shorts or not, but it kind of feels like they've replaced Heffalumps and Woozles as the thing the toys are irrationally afraid of. But yeah, Christopher Robin, being, as we established in the last episode, wise in the ways of the world, knows that there are no Jaguars, so he says, "Sure, Tigger. If there's ever a Jaguar we need protecting from, you can be king." I guess to Tigger, a king is someone who physically defends his people in battle when needed and is rewarded with total subservience by them the rest of the time. Okay, sure. So Tigger does the only rational thing in this scenario and fakes a Jaguar attack using some junk he steals from Rabbit's house. So naturally, as ordained by Christopher Robin, they crown him King of the Beasties. This title seems a little confused as he's clearly king over them, but Owl says they're not beasties, so is he king of what? The Jaguars? 'Cause they're beasties? I guess he's just inheriting his title from his cousin the lion. This crown they give him, okay, I couldn't figure it out for a while. I thought this was an upside-down teacup on the front, so I figured I guess it's some kind of household object converted into a crown, but I had no idea what it could have been. But after mulling it over, I've decided that I think it's actually a cup of coffee, not a teacup, and the crown was actually a can of coffee grounds that's been, split open. So that's what I think about that. So anyway, they crown Tigger with it, and Tigger declares that the 100-acre wood is now Tiggeropolis. I think it was Tiggeropolis. Then he gets a song as he makes the other toys paint the 100-acre wood in what he calls royal orange and black. The visuals in this sequence are actually pretty cool, and the song's pretty decent. I especially like this bucket of orange and black striped paint that stripes anything you dip in it. It's like those weird tie-dye plastic baths people dip their electric guitars in to give them cool psychedelic patterns. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just gonna assume you know what I'm talking about. Eventually, Rabbit finds the fake Jaguar and is annoyed. Not that Tigger has enslaved the rest of his friends, but that he borrowed his stuff without asking. Rabbit revenge pranks Tigger by taking the fake Jaguar back and leaving this note saying the Jaguar was freed by another Jaguar, making Tigger think there's an actual Jaguar on the loose and scaring the bejesus out of him. But the other animals want their king to do his kingly duty of beating up wildlife, so they go looking for the new Jaguar, but they end up finding the old fake one at Rabbit's house, and the ruse is discovered. Everyone's super quick to forgive Tigger, and he suffers no consequence for his horribly manipulative deceptions. Honestly, Rabbit is about 1,000,000 times more mad at Tigger for borrowing his tablecloth without asking than anyone is at him for, making them all his servants under false pretenses. Gopher's the only one who even seems to care about that, presumably because he was the only one who'd have had anything else to do with his day. It's kind of interesting that at both the beginning and end of this episode, Tigger seems to really want to think he has some kind of animal family that he belongs to. Like I said in the previous episode, Tigger was famously proud of being the only one of his kind in the old shorts, but in these past 2 episodes, it doesn't seem like he really likes that idea anymore. I haven't seen the Tigger movie, but I have a vague impression it might involve him meeting other Tiggers. I don't actually know. But I wonder if this idea of Tigger wanting to feel connected to his own kind will come up more as the New Adventures series goes on. And I wonder if a growing desire for belonging will ever conflict with his sense of pride and his uniqueness. I guess we'll have to wait and see. This episode reminds me a little bit of Masked Defender in that it involves Tigger fighting imaginary evils, only this time he knows they're fake and he's doing it for ill-gotten gain. It also reminds me a bit of Piglet Who Would Be King in that Tigger finds himself in charge of minions, only this time Tigger actually abuses his position of power. The lack of any comeuppance for Tigger in the end is disappointing. I guess he had to be afraid of a supposedly real Jaguar for a while. Does that count? I don't know. Anyway, this episode's pretty decent. Episode 17B, The Rats Who Came to Dinner. So it's raining real bad in the 100-acre wood, and everyone's roof is leaking. The pack rats are out stealing junk and leaving walnuts behind in their place, like they do. The rain hits their underground thieves' den real hard, though, and they get flooded out and seek shelter in Pooh's house. Pooh reluctantly lets them stay, and they try to repay him with walnuts, but he tells them that what he really needs are more pots and pans to collect the rain that's leaking into his house. No, Pooh, I think what you really need is just a better roof. Anyway, the pack rats, wanting to help their gracious host, go around to the other animals' houses and steal all their pots and pans and bring them back for Pooh. There's a scene here where Gopher digs his way into Rabbit's house because his tunnels are flooded, and I really like it. Rabbit and Gopher also argued a bit in Nothing But the Tooth about Gopher digging under Rabbit's garden, and I actually really like that too. I think these two might be a good pair because they're generally more motivated than the other characters. Pooh and Piglet and Eeyore usually just go along with whatever's happening. Tigger and Owl are usually just goofing around, but Rabbit and Gopher are more often trying to actually get something done. I'd love an episode where, I don't know, maybe they team up to oppose a common enemy, like evil worms that are infesting both Gopher's tunnels and Rabbit's garden or something. Yeah, evil worms. Yeah, that'd be sick. Anyway, the other animals come to Pooh's house. I guess they're there to see if Pooh got robbed like they did, and they find all their stuff. But Pooh takes the fall for it and pretends the rats are his cousins, which naturally fools everyone. That night, Pooh tells the rats that it's better to give than to receive, so after Pooh goes to sleep, the rats take his words to heart and take all of Pooh's stuff and put it in Piglet's house. The next day, the animals come back to Pooh's house to apprehend the rats. I don't know how they knew that they were there, since the cousin cover story worked like such a charm, but oh well. Pooh tells them to wait because the rats were trying to do the right thing by giving stuff to Piglet, but Gopher and Rabbit have murder on their minds, and I guess Rabbit's intent here is to throw the rats out into the flood and drown them, but he's a fool and just ends up letting the flood in, ruining everything. So the rats run off, and later on, after a bit of underwater surveying, Gopher reports that everyone's houses have been robbed completely bare. So by this point, everyone's at Owl's treehouse because the watery apocalypse has laid waste to everything else, and Owl says that even if the pack rats hadn't stolen everything, all their stuff would have been ruined in the flood anyway. Pooh mentions that Tigger doesn't have any stuff, and suddenly I'm realizing that I don't think I've ever seen Tigger's house. Is he just a homeless vagrant? Awesome. I think I have a vague memory from the theatrical shorts that he just, sleeps in trees. In Gone with the Wind, he was sleeping in Rue's bed, so maybe when the weather's bad, he crashes there. Anyway, turns out, the pack rats actually took all the animals' stuff and stashed it in Owl's closet so it would be safe from the flood, and the day is saved. Hooray. Actually, Kanga and Rue aren't here, so maybe their stuff is in fact ruined and they're destitute now. Or maybe their stuff is in this pile somewhere. Eeyore, though. I feel pretty confident in saying that Eeyore is definitely down below somewhere, floating face down and bloated on the floodwaters. Haha, classic Eeyore. So yeah, they throw a party to celebrate the pack rats being nice now. Or maybe they were nice all along and they just learned how to be nice correctly. Who can say? This episode's a little stressful to watch, actually. Like, imagine being in one of these houses that is just having rainwater pour down through leaks in the dirt roof. Ugh, so nasty. Also, imagine having all your stuff repeatedly moved around and thrown into piles in other people's houses. It probably took the animals the rest of the day to sort through this big collective pile, separate what belongs to who, and move it all back to its proper place. What a nightmare. Just let me die in the flood, I say. Eeyore had the right idea. Well, time to buy some time. Time to waffle for a minute or two while these names scroll by. The names of everyone, well, not everyone, everyone supporting me at $5 or more currently on Patreon. I felt a little better about watching all this Winnie the Pooh this week. Last week was kind of a drag. Wasn't feeling him. Was better this week. I had a reasonably good time. I enjoyed myself adequately. That's what I have to say. That's it's a very, my thumb is teetering on the horizontal plane and it's just creeping up. It's just creeping up to the vertical. Just a little bit of thumbs up. It's a thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs up this week. Good stuff. Once again, thanks everyone on screen. Thanks all my patrons, including the ones pledging under $5, of course. It all adds up. I appreciate it a lot. And thank you to David, Ash Vampire, Jalen, Chelsea, Crack, and Bob, all of whom are pledging 25 or more. You guys are lifesavers. Thank you very much. All right, I think that's gonna do it. See you next week. Winnie the Pooh!